Stop what you are doing right now, because what I am about to share with you could be the most important 30 minutes of brain health information you will hear this year. And I say that not to be dramatic, but because most doctors, including many neurologists, are still not telling their patients over 60 about this. Let me tell you about Eleanor, a 73-year-old retired librarian from Portland, Oregon. She went to bed one Tuesday night after finishing her evening tea, the same routine she had followed for 40 years. The next morning, her husband found her sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a family photograph, unable to remember the names of her own grandchildren. She was awake, alert, but cognitively, she had crossed a threshold overnight that terrified her family. What happened to Eleanor is happening to millions of seniors across America every single year, and most people have no idea it is preventable. And number 3 on this list is something almost every senior in America eats at least twice a week, and most people consider it one of the healthiest things they can put in their body. You will want to stay until we get there. I am Dr. William Lee, a vascular biologist, brain health researcher, physician, scientist, and author who has spent over 30 years studying how food affects the human brain at the cellular level. I have worked with research teams at some of the most prestigious medical institutions in the world, and what I have discovered about the relationship between nutrition and cognitive decline has completely changed how I counsel my patients over 60. Most neurologists focus on medications and cognitive testing, but they are missing the most powerful intervention we have, and it is sitting in your kitchen right now. A landmark study published by researchers at the Rush University Medical Center in Chicago, following over 900 adults aged 65 and older for nearly 5 years, found something extraordinary. The participants who consistently consumed specific brain protective compounds showed cognitive abilities equivalent to people 7.5 years younger. Let me say that again. 7.5 years of cognitive aging reversed through dietary intervention alone. Their rates of Alzheimer's disease and dementia were reduced by 53% compared to those who did not consume these foods. This was not a small pilot study. This was rigorous, peer-reviewed research published in the journal Alzheimer's and Dementia, and it has been replicated by teams across the world. Today, I am going to break down the 5 most powerful brain foods ranked from helpful to absolutely transformational. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what to eat tomorrow morning to begin protecting and even restoring your cognitive function. These are not exotic superfoods you need to order online. These are foods available at any grocery store, and the science behind them is absolutely undeniable. Before we dive in, I want to ask you something personally. Leave a comment below telling me your age and whether you have noticed any changes in your memory, focus, or mental clarity in recent years. Do you forget names more often, lose your train of thought mid-sentence, walk into rooms and forget why you went there? I read every single comment on this channel, and your answers genuinely shape what I cover next. Now, let us get into the 5 foods that could change everything. Coming in at number 5, and this one surprises almost everyone I tell it to, we are talking about wild-caught fatty fish, particularly salmon, mackerel, and sardines. Now, I know you have heard that fish is good for your brain, but let me explain why it deserves this position and what most doctors never tell you about how to consume it for maximum cognitive benefit. After the age of 65, your brain's ability to produce and maintain myelin, the protective insulation around your nerve cells, declines by approximately 35% compared to younger adults. Think of myelin like the plastic coating around electrical wires. When that coating degrades, the signals do not transmit properly, and you get cognitive static. Memory retrieval slows down, processing speed decreases, and mental clarity fades. Wild-caught fatty fish contains extraordinarily high concentrations of omega-3 fatty acids, specifically DHA and EPA, which are the primary structural components of brain cell membranes. A study conducted by researchers at the University of Pittsburgh following over 260 adults aged 65 and older found that participants who consumed fatty fish at least twice weekly showed hippocampal volumes, that is the memory center of your brain, that were 14% larger than those who rarely ate fish. 14%. That is massive when you are talking about the organ responsible for storing your life's memories. Let me tell you about Robert, 68, a retired electrician from Memphis, Tennessee. Robert came to me experiencing what he described as brain fog so persistent that he had begun to worry about early dementia. He was forgetting appointments, struggling to follow conversations, and had stopped reading books because he could not remember what happened in previous chapters. When we ran his cognitive assessment and omega-3 index, his levels were severely deficient and his inflammatory markers were elevated. We introduced wild-caught salmon 3 times per week, prepared simply with olive oil and herbs. Within 90 days, his omega-3 index had normalized. His inflammatory markers dropped by 41%, and Robert reported that the fog had lifted. His wife confirmed it. Robert told me reading felt like a form of reconnection with himself. He was right. Here's how to do this correctly. You want 3 to 4 ounces of wild-caught fatty fish 3 times per week. Wild-caught is critical because farmed fish often contains significantly lower omega-3 levels and higher contamination levels. Prepare it gently, baking or pan-searing, because high-heat grilling can oxidize the delicate omega-3 fats. And here is the synergy tip most people miss. Pair your salmon with dark leafy greens like spinach or kale, because the vitamin K in those greens works synergistically with omega-3s to protect brain cell membranes. Research from the Jean Mayer USDA Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging at Tufts University found that this combination amplifies cognitive protection by approximately 30% compared to either food alone. Number 5 is powerful, but number 4 is where the science gets truly extraordinary. We are talking about blueberries, specifically wild blueberries, and the mechanism here is something most neurologists never discuss with their patients. After the age of 70, your brain's ability to neutralize free radicals, those unstable molecules that damage DNA and accelerate aging, drops by approximately 40% from its peak. Your brain is incredibly vulnerable to oxidative stress because it uses 20% of your body's oxygen, despite being only 2% of your body weight. All that oxygen metabolism creates massive amounts of free radicals, and if your antioxidant defenses are declining, the damage accumulates silently. Blueberries contain a class of compounds called anthocyanins, which are powerful antioxidants that can actually cross the blood-brain barrier. Most antioxidants cannot do this, but anthocyanins can, and once they are in your brain tissue, they do something remarkable. A groundbreaking study from the University of Cincinnati Academic Health Center studied adults aged 68 and older with early memory decline. Participants consumed wild blueberry powder, equivalent to 1 cup of fresh berries daily for 16 weeks. At the end of the study period, they showed significant improvements in memory performance and reduced brain activation during cognitive tasks, meaning their brains were working more efficiently. Let me tell you about Dorothy, 78 years old from Knoxville, Tennessee. Dorothy had been experiencing what she called senior moments with increasing frequency. She would lose her keys daily, forget whether she had taken her medications, and struggled to recall names of longtime neighbors. Her daughter was deeply concerned and had begun researching memory care facilities. When Dorothy came to see me, her oxidative stress panel showed markers that concerned me deeply. We started her on a protocol that centered around 1 cup of wild blueberries every single morning, mixed into Greek yogurt with a tablespoon of ground flaxseed. Within 4 months, her daughter called my office in tears. She said her mother had started finishing crossword puzzles again for the first time in 3 years, was remembering medication schedules without reminders, and had returned to her weekly book club because she could finally follow plot lines again. Dorothy told me she felt like herself for the first time in years. Here is how to implement this. 1 cup of fresh or frozen wild blueberries daily is the target. Wild blueberries are smaller but contain approximately double the anthocyanin content of conventional blueberries. You can find them in the frozen section of most grocery stores. Consume them in the morning because the antioxidant protection peaks about 2 hours after consumption, giving your brain maximum defense during your most cognitively demanding hours. And here is the pairing secret. Combine your blueberries with a source of healthy fat like Greek yogurt, walnuts, or almond butter because anthocyanins are fat-soluble, meaning they are absorbed significantly better when consumed with fat. Research from the USDA Human Nutrition Research Center found that fat pairing increases anthocyanin absorption by up to 67%. Now let us move to number 3, and this is the one I teased at the very beginning of this video. We are talking about extra virgin olive oil, and I want to explain why this deserves such a high position on this list when most people think of it as just a cooking fat. After 65, your brain develops what researchers call neuroinflammation, a state of chronic low-grade inflammation specifically in brain tissue. This inflammation is not something you can feel directly, but it is quietly destroying synaptic connections, damaging neurons, and accelerating cognitive decline. Studies from the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center at Washington University in St. Louis have shown that neuroinflammation can precede measurable cognitive decline by 10 to 15 years, meaning it is destroying your brain silently right now if it is not controlled. Extra virgin olive oil contains a compound called oleocanthal, which functions as a powerful anti-inflammatory agent specifically targeted at brain tissue. A landmark study published in the Annals of Clinical and Translational Neurology followed over 92,000 adults for 28 years, and what they found was extraordinary. Participants who consume more than half a tablespoon of olive oil daily showed a 28% lower risk of dying from dementia-related causes compared to those who rarely or never consumed olive oil. Even more remarkable, substituting just 1 teaspoon of margarine or mayonnaise with olive oil was associated with an 8 to 14% lower risk of dementia mortality. Let me tell you about Margaret, 71 years old, a retired school teacher from Tucson, Arizona. Margaret came to me complaining of what she described as mental fogginess and difficulty concentrating that had developed over the past 18 months. She had been a passionate reader her entire life, but found herself rereading the same paragraphs repeatedly without comprehension. When we ran her inflammatory markers, her high sensitivity C-reactive protein was nearly 3 times the normal range for a woman her age, indicating systemic inflammation that was almost certainly affecting her brain. We introduced a Mediterranean-style dietary pattern with extra virgin olive oil as the primary fat source, approximately 3 tablespoons daily used in salad dressings, drizzled over vegetables, and used for low-heat cooking. Within 6 weeks, her CRP levels dropped by 38%. Within 3 months, Margaret reported that the fog had lifted completely. She was reading again, retaining information, and had started volunteering as a literacy tutor at her local library. She cried in my office and told me she felt like herself again for the first time in years. Here is how to use olive oil correctly for brain protection. You want 2 to 3 tablespoons of high-quality extra virgin olive oil daily. Quality matters enormously here. Look for oils that are cold-pressed, stored in dark glass bottles, and ideally certified by organizations like the California Olive Oil Council. Many supermarket olive oils are adulterated or oxidized. Use olive oil for salad dressings, drizzle it over cooked vegetables, and use it for low to medium heat cooking. Do not use it for high heat frying because excessive heat degrades the beneficial compounds. And here is the synergy pairing. Combine your olive oil with tomatoes because the lycopene in tomatoes is fat soluble and absorbed dramatically better when consumed with olive oil. Research from The Ohio State University found that lycopene absorption increased by over 400% when tomatoes were consumed with olive oil, and lycopene has its own powerful neuroprotective properties. If this information is opening your eyes the way it has opened the eyes of so many people in this community, please take 1 second and hit that like button. And if you are not yet subscribed, I invite you to join us. I publish evidence-based content specifically for people in their 60s, 70s, and beyond every single week, and it is completely free. Subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss a video. And now we arrive at number 2, and this is where things get genuinely revolutionary. We are talking about dark leafy greens, specifically spinach, kale, collard greens, and Swiss chard. The reason this sits so high on this this list is because of a specific mechanism that almost nobody outside of neuroscience research understands. After the age of 75, your brain experiences a dramatic decline in the production of a molecule called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF like fertilizer for your brain cells. It stimulates the growth of new neurons, strengthens existing connections, and protects brain cells from damage and death. When BDNF levels decline, your cognitive reserve, your brain's ability to maintain function despite aging and damage, collapses. Dark leafy greens are extraordinarily rich in folate, vitamin K, lutein, and nitrates, and these compounds work together to support BDNF production and protect existing brain structure. A study from Rush University Medical Center, the same team that conducted the landmark Mind Diet research, followed over 900 participants with an average age of 81 for nearly 5 years. They found that participants who consumed just one serving of leafy greens daily showed cognitive abilities equivalent to people 11 years younger. 11 years. The rate of cognitive decline was slowed by approximately 40% compared to those who rarely ate leafy greens. Let me tell you about Harold, 76 years old, from Columbus, Ohio. Harold had been experiencing progressive memory decline over 18 months. His wife reported that he would forget conversations that had occurred hours earlier, repeatedly ask the same questions, and had gotten lost driving to familiar locations twice. Harold was terrified he was developing Alzheimer's disease. When we assessed his nutritional status, his folate and vitamin K levels were severely deficient, and his cognitive testing showed concerning patterns. We introduced 2 servings of dark leafy greens daily, 1 raw in a morning smoothie with berries and Greek yogurt, and 1 cooked serving with dinner, typically sautéed spinach or steamed kale with olive oil and garlic. Within 8 weeks, Harold's nutritional markers had normalized. Within 4 months, his wife reported that the repetitive questioning had stopped. He was remembering conversations clearly, and he had resumed driving without incidents. His follow-up cognitive testing showed measurable improvement in memory recall and processing speed. Harold told me he felt like a fog had been lifted that he had not even realized was there. Here's how to implement this correctly. You want 1 to 2 servings of dark leafy greens every single day. A serving is approximately 1 cup raw or half a cup cooked. Variety matters because different greens contain different protective compounds. Rotate between spinach, kale, collard greens, Swiss chard, and arugula. For maximum benefit, consume 1 serving raw and 1 cooked because some compounds are better absorbed from raw greens while others are enhanced by gentle cooking. Lightly steam or sauté for 3 to 4 minutes maximum to preserve the delicate nutrients. And here is the critical pairing. Consume your leafy greens with a source of healthy fat, either olive oil, avocado, or nuts, because the vitamin K and lutein are fat-soluble and absorption increases by up to 500% when consumed with fat. And now we arrive at number 1. The single most important food every person over 60 needs to understand for brain protection and cognitive restoration. This is what the research has been quietly building toward, and what most preventive neurology conversations never reach. This is the one. We are talking about walnuts, and specifically the unique properties of walnut consumption for aging brain health. The reason this sits at the top of this list is not because it does one thing exceptionally well. It is because the body of evidence surrounding walnuts encompasses virtually every mechanism of brain aging simultaneously. Walnuts are the only nut that contains significant amounts of alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid that your body converts into the same DHA found in fish. They also contain extraordinarily high levels of polyphenols, antioxidants that cross the blood-brain barrier and accumulate specifically in brain tissue. A groundbreaking study from the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA examined over 2,000 adults and found that walnut consumption was associated with significantly better cognitive function across all age groups, but the effect was most pronounced published in adults over 60. Higher walnut consumption was linked to improved memory, concentration, and information processing speed. But here is what makes walnuts truly unique. Research published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease found that walnut extract reduced beta amyloid protein aggregation, the toxic protein clumps that form the plaques characteristic of Alzheimer's disease, by up to 76% in laboratory studies. Additional research from the New York State Institute for Basic Research in Developmental Disabilities found that dietary walnut supplementation improved memory, learning ability, motor coordination, and anxiety reduction in animal models of Alzheimer's disease. The mechanisms involved include reduction of oxidative stress, reduction of inflammation, and enhancement of synaptic plasticity, your brain's ability to form new connections and maintain existing ones. Let me tell you about Richard, 74 years old, a retired engineer from Sacramento, California. Richard had been experiencing what he called senior moments with increasing frequency and severity. He would forget appointments despite writing them down, lose his car in parking lots, and struggle to recall familiar words mid-conversation. His children were concerned enough to suggest he stop driving. When Richard came to see me, his cognitive screening showed mild cognitive impairment, a condition that progresses to dementia in approximately 15% of cases per year. We implemented a comprehensive brain health protocol, but the cornerstone was 1 ounce of walnuts, approximately 7 whole walnuts or 14 halves, consumed every single day. Richard ate them mid-morning as a snack, chopped them into his breakfast oatmeal, or added them to salads. Within 12 weeks, Richard reported noticeable improvements in word recall. Within 6 months, his follow-up cognitive testing showed improvement in multiple domains, including memory, executive function, and processing speed. His neurologist was genuinely surprised because mild cognitive impairment typically progresses, it does not improve. Richard has now maintained this dietary pattern for over 2 years, and his cognitive function has remained stable with no progression toward dementia. He drives confidently, manages his own schedule, and recently started teaching math tutoring to middle school students. He told me that walnuts saved his independence, and based on the research, he may be absolutely right. Here is how to consume walnuts for maximum brain protection. 1 ounce daily, approximately 7 whole walnuts or 14 halves, is the target dose supported by research. Consume them raw or lightly toasted because excessive heat can damage the delicate omega-3 fats and polyphenols. Store walnuts in the refrigerator or freezer because the oils oxidize quickly at room temperature, and oxidized fats lose their beneficial properties. And here is the ultimate synergy pairing. Combine walnuts with dark chocolate, at least 70% cacao. Research from Loma Linda University found that the combination of walnuts and dark chocolate produces synergistic improvements in cognitive function, cardiovascular health, and metabolic markers that exceed either food alone. The flavonoids in dark chocolate enhance the absorption and effectiveness of the compounds in walnuts. These 5 foods, wild-caught fatty fish, blueberries, extra virgin olive oil, dark leafy greens, and walnuts, represent something extraordinary. They cost almost nothing. They require no prescription. They have no side effects other than better health. And every single one of them has been studied by real researchers at real institutions whose references I have placed for you in the description below this video. I want to speak to you directly for a moment. If you are over 60 or 70, you may sometimes feel that the window for meaningful cognitive change has closed, that the damage is done, the genetics are set, the trajectory is fixed. I want you to hear this clearly. The research says otherwise. It is never, and I mean never, too late to give your brain better information through better food. Your brain, even at 75, even at 80, even at 85, retains a remarkable capacity to form new connections, to heal damaged areas, and to restore lost function when you give it what it needs. Eleanor, the woman I told you about at the beginning who could not remember her grandchildren's names, implemented every single one of these 5 foods into her daily routine. Within 6 months, her memory had improved so dramatically that her neurologist reduced her dementia diagnosis from probable Alzheimer's to age-related cognitive changes. She is now 75 and she babysits those grandchildren every week, remembers every detail of their lives, and tells me she feels sharper now than she did at 70. The goal here is not just preventing dementia, it is protecting your ability to remember the moments that matter, to recognize the faces of the people you love, to maintain the conversations that give your life meaning, to preserve your independence and your dignity as you age. You deserve to have this information. Your doctor may not have told you, but that does not mean it is not true. The science is clear, the mechanisms are understood, and the interventions work. If this video helped you today, please subscribe right now. It costs you nothing, and it means the world to this channel and to the community we are building here together. Share this video with someone you love, a spouse, a parent, a friend who has mentioned memory concerns. You could be giving them a gift they do not even know they need. Leave me a comment right now. Which of these 5 foods surprised you most? Was it the walnuts, the olive oil, the leafy greens? Tell me and tell me your age, because this conversation belongs to you, and I will be right here reading what you write. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video, because I will be back next week with more evidence-based information that could change your life. I am Dr. William Lee, and I will see you in the next video. Take care of yourself. You are worth it. It is never too late.